China could rebuild this tomorrow, but it refuses to. At first, I couldn't understand why leave one of the greatest palaces in history looking like this. But then I learned what these ruins are actually trying to say. These are the ruins of Yuanmingyuan, or the old summer palace. Standing here, it's almost impossible to imagine what it once looked like. It wasn't just one garden, it was 3 imperial gardens covering an enormous area. It was larger than the Forbidden City with more than 150 scenic areas. People once called it the Garden of Gardens. But what makes it even more extraordinary is that it combined Chinese design with European-style architecture, fountains, and engineering. Then came 1860. During the Second Opium War, British and French forces entered Yuanmingyuan. Before they burned it, they took everything they could. Priceless works of art, jade, porcelain, books that didn't exist anywhere else on planet Earth. They even took a puppy, an imperial Pekingese. A British captain gave the puppy to Queen Victoria, and they named her Lootie. Yes, as in loot. A British officer later admitted that the soldiers were wild for plunder. Silk imperial robes, which legally only the emperor could have worn, were used as horse blankets. So much gold was burned because they thought it was brass, and so many items were auctioned on site. 3 days later, one of the greatest collections of historical treasures representing over 5,000 years of civilization and one of the greatest royal gardens in history was gone. But the story didn't end in 1860. Today, there are over 1.6 million Chinese artifacts abroad in museums, and that's not counting those in private hands. The most famous being the 12 zodiac heads, which used to be right here. They have become the symbol of China's lost cultural heritage. So far, 7 have returned home, but 5 are still missing. The rat and the rabbit actually sat in someone's personal collection who owns a famous luxury brand that you've definitely heard of. Today, China continues to bring home its cultural treasures through diplomacy, legal action, and donations. But some good news. Since 2012, more than 2,300 cultural relics have been returned to China. And recently, France passed a law making it easier to return cultural items that were taken through looting or illegal acquisition. Before visiting here, I thought that China should rebuild this place. But after visiting, my opinion totally changed, and I understand why it didn't. If Yuanmingyuan were to be rebuilt, you wouldn't get history back. You would only get a copy. And these ruins are a part of China's story now. Every broken wall here reminds people of what happened and why it can never happen again. China could have rebuilt this place. Instead, it chose to remember. Standing here, I don't see a broken palace anymore. Instead, I see one of the most powerful history lessons I have ever walked through.